Welcome back to the channel. My name is Brad and this is Supercoach Pro. Today we're doing player profile on Supercoach players, and today's Caleb Serong. We have been MIA for the last 2 weeks, getting my laptop fixed, but also it's just been heavily draft focused. So I'm sure you guys saw a lot of mock drafts, and I just thought at the moment Supercoach felt a little bit irrelevant, just in that 2 weeks leading up to the draft, and some of those players that will get into that probably can be considered for the rookies going further, I guess, because they're the players we'll be looking at, and also players from previous years that haven't had many games because they'll be quite cheap. So there is a few sort of draft steals that as they say. So there might be some players that we think can play straight away for our sides. It might be like that 119k mark, or at least the 102k mark, which is not too many of those players, but generally in the preseason they do bob up. So we will find those. But today it's more about the premiums. I've got 3 or 4 players on my list that I've been requested, and this is probably my favourite one, to be honest. Caleb Serong for me. He's the right age bracket for Supercoach scoring. He has the ability to obviously win a lot of contested possession and a lot of high disposals. I did watch him at various stages of the season, weirdly enough, play like wing and just weird rotations that he did have, just with the amount of midfielders that Freo do have. But his back end of the year felt like it was a lot better than his start of the year. His start of the year was, sort of those 105 sort of range. And it kind of felt like if you didn't have Brayshaw and you had Serong, you were disappointed, but Serong made up the numbers in the last half from memory, and I just think he's only going to get better. He's in prime age candidate for Supercoach. Like, you want to pick these guys in their mid-20s as opposed to those guys, in their late 20s, early 30s, because, for regression reasons, obviously. So Caleb Serong is, I'd like to say, a no-brainer for Supercoach. I think he's in the same category as the Dacos type pick, where you know what you're going to get from him, generally speaking. There's not too many sub-tons, but even the scoring history, he's always scored so well. I probably don't need to go back into 2020 or 21 or 22, but you'll have a look at the last 3 years. You can see even the year before he was averaging 115. So there is meat on the bone for a pick like Serong. He's probably going to cop the tag with Brayshaw. I think it's a little bit easier to maybe tag Serong than one is Brayshaw, because Brayshaw has a better outside game, in my opinion. And I did also see Serong play a little bit of forward, which is interesting. But I just think that's the rotation thing instead of him coming to the bench. So you have a look at 2025 log. Even the elimination final, you can see he scored 150 Supercoach points. The right-hand column is what we're looking at. But even if you look at his flaws in there with those low sort of games, there's a 75, there's a couple 80s in there. But under 100 last year, he only went 1, 2, 3. There is a 63, my bad. 4, 5, 6, and let's just call it 6 because 99 is pretty close. So 6 plus a little bit of a 1 there. So 7 games, let's just call it then, if you want to get technical. So, over 25 games, it's pretty impressive, to be fair. I just think that Serong surely has that ceiling to go that 115 again. And I just think he's in the prime of his career. Like, his ceiling is captain worthy. So there's a 150 there, there's a 130 there. So that's always 2. That's 3, 4, 5. Maybe not as many captain picks as you'd like, but you're going to get the consistency. I think a 105 mark, only have 5 captaincy scores, is pretty average. But you go back, and this is the form you want him to recapture, and I think he can. I really don't think that's his best season was, as a 23-year-old. So I think you look at this season, 2024 season, the ceiling is way high. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So a few extra ones, but the ceiling was a lot lower. The floor was a lot lower, it seems, because there's no 60s in there either. So just seems like a solid pick, and just really good high scores that you can, probably a VC candidate by the looks of it, if I'm looking at him as a Supercoach pick. He's a safe VC, still a safe C, but I think he's a genuine pick this year. So back on the Serong train, for me this year, I think I'll be starting him. Where I think he can average is probably closer to that 115 as opposed to the 105 and the 110. I think he can go back to his best because it was only the year before last that he did that. And for me, I just think there's obviously Brayshaw, who I think will get a little bit more attention this year. In saying that, I'm not thrown off by picking both if I had to. It's obviously fixture based for me and how I'm going to set up my side due to the buys, because last year I didn't really set up for the buys and it kind of hurt me in the end in a hindsight sort of thing. So for me overall, I think Serong has got the game to still get those 115s. I think players like Will Brodie should help his game if he can get a spot in that side anyway. But I just think Serong, even going forward, should kick a few more goals than what he has in previous seasons. So I just think he's the prime age. So he'll be going into next season at 25 years old. For a mid, that's sort of when they do their best work anyway. That mid-20s and even probably up until about 30, then they sort of start to regress from there. But in Supercoach scoring, that is. But yeah, for me, there's just too many boxes that he ticks for me to actually avoid him. And he's probably one of the 10 that I'm considering starting, and he's probably my top 3, to be fair. I think he's got an all-round game for Supercoach. Could probably hit the scoreboard a little bit more, but I think that in time will happen. And I just think he's always in the scoring chain as well, more often than not. Still got Hayden Young around there, so maybe Young plays a little bit more forward than what Serong would, of course. But I just can't see Serong and Brayshaw being anything less than that, second banana. I think they're 1 and 2. And then I think obviously Young and players like that are third, fourth banana after that. But that's probably the other thing. The only thing to worry about for a Serong is probably that the tag is going to be between him and Brayshaw, whereas picking both kind of nullifies that issue. Only thing it does do to your side, though, that can hinder it a little bit is you don't have as many VC or C options if you do handcuff the pick. But in saying that, if you have that philosophy of just set and forget, go for the best, you probably know they're going to be in that top 10 range end of the season, you'd think. It is hard to guess and hard to predict what the top 10 of each line looks like, but you'd imagine that Serong and Brayshaw would be thereabouts. And picking them up both wouldn't be the worst thing. But yeah, for Serong, I just think there's not too many other red flags in his Supercoach scoring. Maybe just that tag factor. He could probably kick a little bit more than what he does handball. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with the pick. I don't think there's anything that would really throw me off or deter the pick, either A, starting him, or B, picking him up throughout the year. But for me, I think he's more of a starting pick than a back-end pick. So, if he does have one good half of the season, at least you sort of get the whole overall picture. Because it would have been hard, starting Serong and watching all his sort of first half of form and then going, should I trade him now because it hasn't sort of turned it around? And when I say that, so I'll just quickly go back to the Serong profile of last season or, 2025. You can see up until round 12, it wasn't that great. It was 97, 107, 117, 104, 108, 80, 102, 103, 142, 105, 99, and 102. So apart from that 142 in round 4 until round 116, 82, and a 150. So he's scoring back end, you can see just visually it did improve as the season went on. So for me, if he can have a good start of the season, this is a pick where he goes back up to that 115, increases his average, because that poor start of the season is what made his average lower than the previous 2 seasons. So for me, Serong, set and forget type of pick. And I'll leave it there. Catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Before you go, give us a like for the content for Supercoach early. I know it is a little bit too early for it, but it's better than waiting until February and being too late on these sort of players and profiles,